Hello and welcome to the Sea Witch. If you're new here, my name is Meredith. Today we are talking about these popular Reiki mashups, particularly, Celtic Reiki, Norse Reiki, I don't know, Fairy Reiki, Atlantean Reiki, what have you. Now, I am not trying to gatekeep and I'm not trying to police anyone's spirituality. Of course, what you do in your own private personal practice, combining, mashing up whatever you want is fine. But so that's not the problem. The problem is when people start presenting it to the world, to others, as something that it's not, and especially when they start charging for it. Now, first, let's clarify for anyone who might not know exactly what Reiki is. Um, it is a modern energy healing modality that was created by Mikao Usui in the 1920s. And it got pretty popular already by the 30s. It found its way to the mainland US via one of his pupils in Hawaii. And it promotes healing through balancing energy with light contact from the hands on the body or the hands hovering over the body. Now, of course, this is very popular and prevalent throughout the whole, new age and alternative spirituality sphere. But now we have all these different flavors. So, why is this such a thing? Well, because in some ways it kind of works. It works socially, it works psychologically, and here's the linchpin here, it works financially. And because modern spiritual culture has kind of some built in permission structures that make authenticity feel optional, which it's not. So, here are the main drivers that I see behind these Reiki mashups. First, branding and market differentiation. So, Reiki is already a very popular and recognized and searched for term, and adding things like Norse or Celtic makes it feel niche, special, and tailored. Basically, kind of like a product variant. It's kind of like the spiritual equivalent of a latte becoming a salted caramel oat milk vanilla latte. Same base, new label, higher perceived uniqueness and kind of value. Number two, next we have identity resonance. People want their spirituality to match their self story. And a lot of folks feel very drawn to Vikings, Celts, fairies, witchy ancestry, and so on. And attaching that to a healing modality makes it feel more like personally fated rather than just learned. It becomes, it's not just something I do, it's who I am. And I'm sure that can be true. And, but people get very attached to that. Number three. Here's a fun one: the channeling loophole. Now, channeling is one of those words that as soon as I hear it, my Agent Scully kind of kicks in. I am mostly Mulder, but I do have a healthy amount of Scully, as I think everyone should. Um, But I feel like maybe part of it is having grown up Mormon, just another offshoot of Christianity, in which there was, revelation, which could only be received by the male prophet. And I don't know, I feel like channeling in a way is kind of similar to that. Um, but also, I mean, ultimately, so if the epistemology is I channeled it, then it bypasses normal standards of evidence, lineage, language, history, or peer verification. So, in that framework, authenticity is measured by felt sense, not by provenance. Next, confusion between overlay and origin. Some people are genuinely sloppy about the differences between traditional Reiki and personal symbolism added on top of it, calling in Odin, using runes, things like that. They treat I add Norse imagery while doing Reiki as equivalent to this is an authentic Norse version of Reiki, which is a huge error. Low regulation plus high authority vibes. There's no central governing body policing truth claims in most spiritual marketplaces, and spiritual business really rewards confident certainty. So the incentives push towards I'm a lineage holder, I was initiated by so and so, and initiated is another one of those words that kind of makes my skin crawl, or this was revealed to me because authority sells. Next, we have aesthetic spirituality and shallow syncretism. We're in an era where symbols are often consumed like aesthetics: runes, knotwork, fairy stuff, shamanic stuff and language, etc. People mash them together because they do look coherent on an altar and in a course description, even if historically and cosmologically they do not belong together. Number 7, and we're almost done here, ancientness is used as a credibility costume. If something is Japanese and only about 100 years old, some people will wrongly take that to mean, less mystical. Excuse me, less mystical than ancient Celtic mysteries. So they retrofit Reiki with ancient to try to make it sound, more powerful, more exotic, more timeless, even though it muddles what Reiki actually is, and it also muddies and flattens whatever it's being combined with. Last but not least, it protects the teacher from critique. Now, if someone can't teach the depth of Reiki, or maybe doesn't want to, maybe it's just a shortcut to making money, adding a big mythic overlay can really distract from that. It distracts from those gaps. Some may confuse emotional intensity, elaborate cosmology, or ritual theater with competence or legitimacy. So, why do so many people act like it's authentic? Well, often because they kind of redefine what authenticity means. It becomes things like, it feels real to me. My guide said so. My clients got results. Many traditions all say the same thing anyway. All paths are one. Stuff like that. Now, those claims may be meaningful inside a personal practice and framework, but they are not the same as this is historically rooted in a Norse or Celtic tradition. Now, also a quick note, and this could be a whole video. The whole all paths are one thing. They're not. It's simply not true. Saying that really collapses differences that actually matter. If two paths make mutually exclusive claims, they can't both be the same, and many of them do. Even when different systems simply use overlapping language, the meanings and the metaphysics are often not the same. Again, you can combine and blend practices in your personal spirituality. The problem is when rebrand no, sorry, the problem is when blending becomes rebranding, especially when that is being sold as ancient, traditional, or culturally authoritative. So here are some discernment questions to ask yourself. Do they clearly distinguish traditional Reiki from their personal overlay? Do they acknowledge Reiki's Japanese origin and lineage? Do they claim cultural authority they simply don't have? Norse, Celtic, shamanic, whatever. Is the Norse or Celtic part actually studied deeply, or is it just vibes and aesthetics? Are they selling urgency, special initiations, secret transmissions, or expensive tiers? Some things to keep in mind when you come across things like this. So now that we've seen why it's such a thing, let's take a look at a couple of specific examples. We'll start with the big one, Celtic Reiki. Now, it's not especially new, but it's definitely not old. It's definitely nowhere near as old as Reiki, which still is quite modern. First of all, and this could also be a topic for a whole other video, the term Celtic and Viking, they are very overused and often misused, really. We won't go into too much detail, but Celtic has now kind of come almost to mean anything pre-Christian European that mystical and magical and came from Scotland or Ireland or England, whatever. It's used more to describe an aesthetic and a vibe than anything factual or historical anymore. I mean, every relaxing fantasy inspired music compilation on YouTube is Celtic or Celtic Fairy, and so on. Celtic Reiki was created by Martin Pentecost in 1998. Now, across various official and commercial descriptions, Celtic Reiki is generally framed as a Reiki based system that emphasizes nature and earth energies and works with a set of essences, often linked to tree and plant symbolism, which those things are not exclusive to Celtic things, of course, but yes, that's a strong feature of Celtic culture and spirituality. The official site now organizes the training as Foundation Mastery, Mystic Mastery, and Realm Mastery. Now, back to that channeling bugaboo. The official About page on the Celtic Reiki website says that Martin Pentecost created or originated it, not channeled it. But there are third party courses and retail listings that do say that it was channeled. For instance, there's a Udemy course description that says that it was channeled and designed by him. So, channeling is a marketing and interpretive layer that you will see repeated widely, even when his own sources say that it was created, not channeled. Obviously, and so that's kind of a big clue and a big red flag. That's one of those things that they're doing, that they're adding on to make it sound more legitimate, more interesting, more mystical. It's not ancient, it's not druidic, it's not historically Celtic, and it wasn't even channeled, allegedly or otherwise. So, what exactly is the point apart from making money? And making money it does, because taking the whole course on the official website will run you over $1,500. That's a lot of motivation to kind of make something up that has mass aesthetic appeal. And speaking of mass aesthetic appeal, now let's talk about the whole Norse, Viking, and even more specifically, and this is a doozy, Seidr inspired Reiki. Um, there is, and I will talk about in a minute like what Seidr actually is. There is a channel, there's a content creator who's also, a Reiki master who teaches courses and certifies and things like that. So she's charging for this. Some of the videos say that it is ancient Viking Seidr healing. Let's unpack all the fail in that phrase. First of all, Viking is not ancient. The Viking age was 793, I think, to 1066. That's the Middle Ages. That's not ancient. Ancient refers to ancient Greece and Rome, ancient Egypt. Think thousands of years old, not hundreds. So there's that. And then there's the claim that she's doing Seidr. Okay, so Seidr is mostly based on prophecy. It's a witchcraft, it's a sorcery, but it's also mainly, not just also, it is very much mostly focused on prophecy. So there are a few different terms for the practitioner. Seidkonas simply means a woman who practices Seidr, and it was largely a woman's art. There were few and far between. There were some men who practiced, but they didn't much because they were considered very unmanly by their culture because it was a woman's art. Now, and there's also spakona, which means prophecy woman, and then there is vulva, who is seer, similar to spakona. Now, the vulva would sit on something called the high seat, which was literally a high seat that was erected for her, and she would have a staff, a magical staff. Staves were very important in Seidr. And she would sit and chant or sing to enter a trance state. And people would come to her and ask her questions, and she would answer them and give prophecy. Now, that is Seidr. And just kind of, whispering all ASMR like and waving your hands over a table is definitely not Seidr. It is nothing like it. Reiki and Seidr could not be more different. They are disparate, even, meaning they cannot be compared. Now, she does try to have, I suppose, a layer of deniability. And some of them she says, like in the description or something, say they're inspired, like I said earlier. But again, they are so different that it's kind of like, okay, how can one inspire the other? And what she's doing in the video, again, is nothing like Seder. So it's like, where exactly is the inspiration? Now, and you would think, okay, you could use inspired kind of loosely. You could still try to defend it, but I mean, I think it still doesn't work. And here's the thing, that's not how it's landing with her viewers. They are taking it very literally and seriously and understanding her to actually be doing basically what she's saying, Seder, or something very similar, which again, she's doing nothing like it. For instance, here in this comment, where they say, I love that you're incorporating the healing tradition of your heritage. And that's just actually not what's happening at all. And there were a couple other comments like that, but I couldn't find them when I went back for it later. But that gives you the idea. And it's clear from other comments and the way they're gushing about it and thanking her and saying all the things that are so cool about all the Norse stuff. It's clear how people are taking it and understanding it. And clearly, by the language and the video, they're being misled. And speaking of comments, here's something interesting. A while back, I had posted on a different account a comment on a video or two, or a couple of comments, I don't know. And when I went back to it to get the comments that I showed you, on my more current, this account that I used to post my videos, I could not see those comments anywhere. And when I logged into the account where I made the comments, I could see them. I did a little research, and one of two things happened. Either for whatever reason, the platform automatically hid or held the comments, even though there's no reason for that to have happened, or, and I don't know for sure, but this is very likely, that she deliberately hid those comments. Now, if she did, that kind of proves that she knows exactly what she's doing. That proves that she knows it's not Seidr, and maybe that she is wanting people to think that it is. Yes, a little bit of speculation, but based on the one of two possibilities, one of them is much more probable. So yeah, I just feel like that says a lot. It's something to think about. Now, on that note, don't be afraid to ask for receipts. Spirituality or practices that don't allow you to question do not have your best interests at heart. Again, I'm not saying you can't combine things for yourself, but you can't make false claims to others, and you certainly can't or should not make money off of false claims. But obviously, a lot of people do. And that is the problem. Real practitioners don't fear honest questions. If someone gets defensive when you ask a thing like, is this traditional Reiki? Or is this Reiki plus your personal overlay? That tells you something. They don't hide comments that ask those questions or correct them. So keep your magic, keep your wonder, but also keep your critical thinking. Practice and study things. Yes, combine things if that works for you, but just understand the difference between what is private and personal and what should be presented to others. Understand the difference between modern synthesis and historic authenticity, and especially be discerning when money becomes involved. Syncretism is not a sin. Misrepresentation, and especially making money off of it, is. Thank you so much for joining me and thinking with me today. I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you next time.